The warm glow of the setting sun painted the Sydney Opera House in hues of gold and amber. As Eliza Matthews hurried up the steps, her heart racing with anticipation. At 28, she was about to make her debut as a featured soloist with the Sydney Symphony Orchestra, a dream she had nurtured since childhood. As she entered the backstage area, a flurry of activity engulfed her. Stagehands rushing about, fellow musicians tuning their instruments, the air thick with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Amidst the chaos, a calm, authoritative voice cut through the noise. "Eliza, there you are." She turned to see Julian Blackwood, the orchestra's 45-year-old conductor, approaching with a warm smile. Tall and distinguished, with piercing blue eyes and salt and pepper hair, Julian had a presence that commanded attention. He had taken Eliza under his wing when she joined the orchestra 3 years ago, recognizing a raw talent that he was determined to nurture. "I was beginning to worry," Julian said, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "Are you ready for your big moment?" Eliza nodded, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach at his touch. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, forcing a smile. Julian's eyes softened. "You're going to be magnificent. I have complete faith in you." As he walked away to prepare for the performance, Eliza took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. She couldn't afford to be distracted. Not tonight. But it was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore the growing attraction she felt towards Julian. The performance was a triumph. Eliza's solo brought the audience to their feet, her violin singing with a passion and clarity that moved even the most stoic listeners. As the final notes faded and applause thundered through the concert hall, Eliza's eyes sought out Julian. The pride and admiration shining in his gaze made her heart soar higher than any standing ovation ever could. Later, at the after-party, Julian found Eliza on a secluded balcony, away from the crowd of well-wishers and critics. "You were extraordinary tonight," he said, handing her a glass of champagne. "I knew you had it in you, but you exceeded even my highest expectations." Eliza blushed, the combination of his praise and the champagne making her feel lightheaded. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance," she replied softly. Julian stepped closer, his eyes intense. "Eliza, He hesitated, seeming to wrestle with some inner conflict. Then, as if making a decision, he cupped her face gently and kissed her. The world fell away as Eliza melted into the kiss. It was everything she had imagined and more, passionate, tender, and thrilling. But as quickly as it began, it ended. Julian pulled away abruptly, regret clouding his features. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice hoarse. "That was inappropriate. I shouldn't have—" Before Eliza could respond, Julian hurried back inside, leaving her alone on the balcony, her lips still tingling from the kiss. That night marked the beginning of a tumultuous journey for both Eliza and Julian. Despite his initial resistance, the attraction between them proved too strong to ignore. They embarked on a secret affair, stealing moments together whenever they could, passionate encounters in Julian's office after late-night rehearsals, stolen kisses in darkened corridors, weekends spent in secluded beach houses where they could pretend the outside world didn't exist. For Eliza, it was a whirlwind of emotions. Julian awakened a passion in her that she had never experienced before, not just physically, but musically as well. Under his tutelage, her playing reached new heights, infused with an emotional depth that critics raved about. But the secrecy took its toll. Julian was married, a fact that gnawed at Eliza's conscience even as she reveled in their stolen moments together. His wife, Rebecca, was a renowned pianist in her own right, and their marriage was a cornerstone of Sydney's musical community. As months passed, the strain of their secret began to show. Eliza found herself growing increasingly resentful of the limitations of their relationship. She longed to be able to express her love openly, to attend events on Julian's arm instead of watching from the sidelines as he played the devoted husband to Rebecca. Julian, too, was torn. He loved Eliza with a passion that both exhilarated and terrified him. She made him feel alive in a way he hadn't in years, inspiring him both personally and professionally. But he was acutely aware of the potential consequences of their affair, the scandal that could destroy both their careers, the pain it would cause Rebecca and their 2 teenage children. The situation came to a head during the orchestra's international tour. In Vienna, after a particularly triumphant performance, Julian and Eliza's passion overwhelmed their caution. They were seen in an intimate embrace by a junior member of the orchestra, and within hours, whispers of their affair had spread through the company. Panic-stricken, Julian made a decision that would alter the course of both their lives. He called an emergency meeting with the orchestra's board of directors, spinning a tale of Eliza's inappropriate advances and his own momentary weakness. He claimed to have rebuffed her, painting himself as the victim of a young, infatuated musician's persistence. Eliza, blindsided and devastated, found herself facing not just heartbreak, but the potential ruin of her career. The board, eager to avoid scandal, offered her a choice: resign quietly or face a very public dismissal. In the aftermath, Eliza's world crumbled. She returned to Sydney alone, her dream of a glittering musical career in tatters. Julian, apparently unscathed, continued to lead the orchestra, his reputation intact. The betrayal cut deeper than Eliza could have imagined. The man she loved, who had promised to cherish and protect her, had sacrificed her to save himself. Months passed in a haze of depression and self-doubt. Eliza couldn't bring herself to pick up her violin, each attempt bringing back painful memories of Julian and the passion they had shared, both musically and personally. She withdrew from her friends in the musical community, unable to bear their pitying looks or thinly veiled curiosity. It was Rebecca, ironically, who became Eliza's unexpected lifeline. The older woman reached out, having pieced together the truth behind the rumors and her husband's increasingly erratic behavior. "I think we need to talk," Rebecca said, when Eliza finally agreed to meet her at a small cafe far from their usual haunts. Expecting recriminations, Eliza was surprised by Rebecca's calm demeanor. "I'm not here to judge you," Rebecca began, her voice tinged with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "I think we've both been deceived by the same man." Over the next few hours, Rebecca shared her own story, of a marriage that had been faltering for years, of Julian's previous indiscretions, of her own struggles to maintain the facade of a perfect musical partnership. "I stayed for the children, for my career, for the life we'd built," Rebecca confessed. "But in doing so, I became complicit in Julian's behavior." As painful as the conversation was, it was also cathartic. For the first time since the scandal broke, Eliza felt seen and understood. Rebecca, rather than being an adversary, became an ally in healing. "We can't let him destroy our love for music," Rebecca said as they parted. "That belongs to us, not to him." Those words became a catalyst for Eliza's redemption. Slowly, painfully, she began to reclaim her passion for music. She started teaching underprivileged children, finding joy in nurturing young talents without the pressure of the professional orchestra world. As her confidence grew, Eliza began to compose, pouring her pain, anger, and ultimately her hope into her music. What emerged was a haunting, powerful concerto that caught the attention of a small but respected chamber orchestra. 2 years after the fateful night in Vienna, Eliza found herself once again on stage, this time premiering her own composition. As she played the final triumphant notes, her eyes fell on 2 figures in the audience, Rebecca, smiling encouragingly, and beside her, Julian. Seeing him stirred a complex mix of emotions, anger, sadness, an echo of the passion they once shared. But as the audience rose in a standing ovation, Eliza realized that Julian no longer held power over her. The music that had once bound them together had become her salvation, her path to rediscovering herself. Backstage, after the performance, Julian approached her, his face a mask of regret and admiration. "Eliza, that was extraordinary. I am so sorry for everything. If there's any way I can make amends." Eliza regarded him calmly, seeing him clearly perhaps for the first time. "There's nothing to amend, Julian," she said softly. "What happened between us? It nearly destroyed me, but it also led me here. I'm not grateful for the pain, but I'm grateful for the growth." As she turned to leave, Julian called out, "Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" Eliza paused, considering. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "But I do know that I've forgiven myself, and that's what matters most." With that, she walked away, head held high, towards the group of young students who had come to support their teacher. As she knelt to hug a young girl clutching a tiny violin, Eliza felt a sense of peace wash over her. Her journey, from rising star to fallen musician to composer and mentor, had been painful and transformative. The passion she had felt for Julian had been real, as had been the betrayal, but through it all, her love for music had remained constant, a beacon guiding her back to herself. As she left the concert hall that night, surrounded by her students and supported by unexpected friendships, Eliza realized that she had found a different kind of passion, one built on self-love, creativity, and the joy of nurturing others. It was a love that could never betray her, a redemption born from the ashes of heartbreak. The Sydney night was alive with possibility, and for the first time in years, Eliza was excited to see what melody life would play next. As Eliza stepped out of the concert hall, the cool evening breeze carried the faint scent of saltwater from the nearby harbor. She took a deep breath, savoring the moment. Her students chattered excitedly around her, their eyes shining with admiration and inspiration. Among them was Lily, a precocious 12-year-old whose raw talent reminded Eliza of herself at that age. "Miss Matthews," Lily tugged at Eliza's sleeve, "do you think I could ever write music like that?" Eliza knelt down, meeting the young girl's eager gaze. "Lily, with dedication and passion, you can create music that's uniquely yours, and I'll be here to help you every step of the way." As the group dispersed, Rebecca approached, a warm smile on her face. "That was truly spectacular, Eliza. You've come so far." Eliza felt a rush of gratitude for the older woman who had become both friend and mentor. "Thank you, Rebecca. I couldn't have done it without your support." Rebecca's eyes twinkled mischievously. "Well, I hope you're ready for your next challenge. I've been talking to some people." Before she could elaborate, they were interrupted by a tall, distinguished man in his early 50s. "Excuse me, Miss Matthews. I'm Daniel Hargrove from the Sydney Conservatorium of Music. I wonder if I might have a word." Eliza exchanged a quick glance with Rebecca, who nodded encouragingly. "Of course, Mr. Hargrove. It's a pleasure to meet you." As they spoke, Eliza's heart began to race. Daniel Hargrove was offering her a position at the conservatorium, not just as a teacher, but as the head of a new program focused on composition and performance. It was an opportunity to shape young musicians, to foster the kind of creativity and resilience she had discovered in herself. "We've been following your work with underprivileged children," Daniel explained, "combined with your talent as a composer and performer. Well, we believe you're exactly what we need to breathe new life into our programs." Eliza felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. This was more than just a job offer. It was a chance to re-enter the world she had once thought lost to her. But it also meant stepping back into the spotlight, facing the whispers and judgments she had fled from 2 years ago. "It's a generous offer, Mr. Hargrove," Eliza said carefully, "but I'll need some time to consider it." As she made her way home that night, Eliza's mind whirled with possibilities. The conservatorium job was tempting, but she was reluctant to leave her young students, many of whom had limited access to musical education outside of her lessons. Over the next few weeks, Eliza threw herself into her teaching and composing, all the while wrestling with the decision before her. It was during a lesson with Lily that clarity finally came. "Miss Matthews," Lily said, her young face serious, "why did you start teaching us?" Taken aback by the question, Eliza considered for a moment. "Because music healed me when I was at my lowest," she answered honestly. "And I wanted to share that gift with others." Lily nodded sagely. "Then shouldn't you do that for as many people as you can?" In that moment, Eliza knew what she had to do. She accepted the conservatorium position, but with conditions. She would establish a scholarship program for underprivileged students, ensuring that talents like Lily would have a chance to flourish. Additionally, she would continue her community outreach work, bridging the gap between the elite world of classical music and the diverse communities of Sydney. The transition wasn't easy. As Eliza had feared, her re-entry into the professional music world stirred up old gossip. There were whispers about her past with Julian, speculation about her qualifications for the position. But Eliza was no longer the vulnerable young violinist she had once been. She faced the challenges head-on, letting her work and her dedication to her students speak for itself. Months passed, and Eliza's innovative approach began to bear fruit. Her classes were oversubscribed, with students drawn to her unique blend of technical expertise and emotional intelligence. She organized concerts that brought together conservatorium students and young musicians from disadvantaged backgrounds, breaking down barriers and challenging preconceptions. It was at one of these concerts that Eliza encountered Julian again. He was there to see their son perform, a talented pianist who had, ironically, become one of Eliza's most promising students. "Eliza," Julian approached her cautiously after the performance, I wanted to thank you for what you've done for Thomas. He speaks so highly of you." Eliza felt a flutter of her old emotions, but it was muted now, overshadowed by the pride she felt in her student's achievements. "Thomas is a gifted musician," she replied evenly. "It's a pleasure to teach him." Julian nodded, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "You've built something remarkable here. I'm sorry I ever stood in the way of your potential." As Eliza watched Julian walk away, she felt the last vestiges of her old pain dissolve. She had moved beyond the need for his approval or apology. Her life was full of music, of purpose, of the joy of nurturing new talents. A year after taking the conservatorium position, Eliza found herself once again on the stage of the Sydney Opera House. But this time, she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Lily, now 14, and poised to make her debut with the symphony orchestra. As Eliza raised her baton, for she had discovered a talent for conducting as well, she caught Rebecca's eye in the audience. The older woman gave her a subtle thumbs up, and Eliza felt a surge of gratitude for the unexpected friendship that had helped her rebuild her life. The music swelled, Lily's violin soaring above the orchestra. Eliza's heart swelled with it, full of pride, joy, and a deep sense of contentment. She had come full circle, transforming her pain into a force for good, using her experiences to guide and protect the next generation of musicians. As the final notes faded and the audience erupted in applause, Eliza realized that this moment of shared triumph, of music created and nurtured and set free, was the truest expression of passion she had ever known. It was a love affair with music itself, with the power of art to heal and transform, to connect and elevate. The betrayal she had suffered had nearly silenced her music, but in finding her way back to it, in sharing it with others, she had composed the most beautiful symphony of all, a life rich with purpose, creativity, and the endless possibility of new melodies yet to be written. As Eliza took her bow, her eyes shining with unshed tears of joy, she knew that this was just the beginning. The music would play on, and she was ready to conduct every magnificent, challenging, beautiful measure of it.